Good morning, everyone. I'm Joel Towers. I'm the Dean of Parsons. This is John Roach, Director of the first year. And what we want to walk you through here this morning is rethink the curriculum that most art and design schools inherited from the Bauhaus and bring it up to speed, if you will, to the 21st century. Because the curriculum is a key part of the overall arc of your experience as a Parsons student. And I'm going to hand it over to John to do that, and then we'll talk about a few other things. So, John, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So curriculum, it's not the most exciting word. You're all entering into a curriculum, and curriculum changes over time, and curriculum should be responsive to the kinds of changes that Joel mentioned as well. So how do we talk about curriculum in a time of change? For us, when we were thinking about really redesigning the curriculum and rethinking it, we wanted to make sure that we're not thinking about curriculum like this, right? It's not this hedge maze that you enter into. There's one way in, there's one way out. You kind of pick up the little things as you go along. You never can peer over the hedge and see what else is available to you. So how do we think about another way of kind of telling this story about what are the choices that you have while you're here, and how have we designed the curriculum to make that available to you? You all have been absorbing a lot of things like curriculum charts, things that look like this. You probably recognize some of them from schools that you've applied to. And this tells one story of the curriculum. It tells you all the things you have to do. It tells you here's a linear sort of list of the things that you must do when you get here. And it's important, but it really doesn't tell a very good story about what you can do. And so we wanted to think about, how do you begin to retell that story? So we decided to go big, really big. And so imagine yourself in relation to this, the vastness of the night sky. A constellation is a wonderful way to begin to say we're making connections that are not linear. They can go in many directions. And the great thing too is that, you know, any astronomer will tell you that these stars are light years apart and away from each other, and yet we can make those connections and we can tell stories based on them. So what might this mean in terms of Parsons? So if you're coming here and you're interested in photography, for example, there's going to be a constellation related to that. And part of that involves this sort of spine of core classes, those things in the curriculum chart. Those are the required classes. But you know, there may be other opportunities within that. We have a lot of elective space across all of our programs where you can make things happen. So I wanted to focus just on one pairing of classes because I think it sort of speaks a lot about the way we think about the curriculum here at Parsons. It's the Integrative Studio and Seminar class. And these classes, one thing that's important about them is that they really specifically bring research, writing, making, thinking all into one place. And so yes, while you're here, you'll be thinking about making things. You'll be thinking about the role of images in culture. But ultimately, we're thinking about ideas. How do you bring new ideas to the table? And a lot of that really involves this sort of collaboration between what we tend to call seminar classes, which are those things where you're doing research and writing and reading, and your studio life. This is a really important hybrid that happens in the first year, both in the first and the second semester. So writing, in the same way that making can take many forms, writing can take many forms. You may be engaging with methods in these writing and research classes that look an awful lot like something you might be doing in a studio class, and this is really the point, is that you're moving across the curriculum and seeing the way that you're bringing ideas to the table.
As he mentioned, you might be interested in photography, but you may also be interested in a minor. One of the things that I think is really wonderful about the Parsons education is the opportunity to go both deep into a major, but also to acquire breadth. And I think it's critical that all of you acquire some breadth of education. If you're in photography, and this is just an example, you may also be interested in temporary environments, a minor that's offered in our School of Constructed Environments, in which we're looking at pop-ups, we're looking at different ways in which the process of interior and architectural design come together to change space temporarily, and that would be one of the options. You also have a long list of minors across Parsons that you could be choosing from, and you could take those from any one of the majors that you're in while you're here.
You may also decide within all of this elective space to dive deep. You may have a class with someone who gets you really fired up about fashion photography. So how do you take advantage of that? You may use this sort of constellation to begin to sort of see all of the opportunities and seek them that you can around a particular topic. There are all kinds of other examples as well. Maybe you're coming in, you're interested in fashion. So what kinds of opportunities might you have to explore that in different ways? So maybe sometime in one of your art, design, history, and theory classes, you learn about textiles of indigenous peoples of Central America. And you decide, this is a really interesting topic for me, and I think I can bring that to my own study. Perhaps you might look for some other opportunities. Maybe they exist within Parsons, maybe not. Maybe you're interested in actually looking at what you might do within anthropology, and there's a minor for that. And so one thing about Parsons is that the first year is a place, this cluster of experiences in the first year is a place where you can really think in an interdisciplinary way. And we built the curriculum so that it points out to all of these different destinations. And so it's a real opportunity for you to explore.
So I mentioned to you that there was a minor in something called the School of Constructed Environments. That's really just a way for us to think about how we organize Parsons as a whole. So if you look at these degree programs, we organize these into what we call schools. It's really just a way of bringing some of those disciplines together to begin to work collaboratively. But that's just one structure. So these are the 5 schools of Parsons. You can see where the degree programs are located. They all work with art and design, history and theory, where we will make sure that you're not isolated again by narrow disciplines and someone says, oh, well, the product design students are only over there working on product design. No, they need to be working near where the fashion design students are, or where the illustration students are, or the communication design students, and you go through the whole thing and make sure that they're hanging out with the strategic design and management students, because they're going to form businesses together when they do that. But that's just the Parsons piece of it. The fact is that Parsons, which sits in a much larger university, inclusive of all of these different colleges, is really where I think we differentiate ourselves from any other college of art and design. And that is because you can be collaborating with all of these different schools across the new school, and you can be choosing your minor, which will bring you back to that anthropology example, very deliberately based on where your interests are. So for example, as John mentioned, if you are interested in anthropology, you would be working with Lang College in one of their minors. As the list will show, we've got a whole range of those. So anthropology is one option, or you might be interested in our campus in Paris, in which case you might want to be studying French beforehand. So you would do that in the languages program, and you could be taking French and then decide to go to Paris and end up at our school there in Paris. And so how you structure your experience, how you choose to look laterally, how you choose to get that breadth is really up to you. And I think that's one of the word choice is a really critical part of the Parsons experience. A lot of design schools are going to tell you this is the narrow path. They're going to follow the hedge model that John showed you. We worked very hard to introduce the possibility of choice, that you are designing your education while you're here, and that requires of you the kind of creativity and innovation that I know you have, but a willingness to really engage in it. This is part of a partnership with you in your education. We make possible this kind of lateral move, as well as the deep dive into disciplinary knowledge that we know you need. And the university is the context for that. But let's go a little deeper into the first year so we can really explore that.
And so I wanted to just give you a little flavor about what happens in that first year that you enter Parsons. There's a lot of different kinds of courses that you're going to take. I can't go into all of them, sadly, I'd love to, but I just wanted to highlight a few key ingredients. One is that, as Joel mentioned, we're very interested in the idea of choice. We're very interested in the idea of flexibility, in the idea of different kinds of experiences happening across your classes. So students can select different versions of first-year courses around different themes. So you'll have your friends in the program will have different kinds of experiences, even though you're all here together. So there's a really great conversation that happens among students who are doing different things. This is just a little smattering of some things that you might encounter. I think it's really worth mentioning the one on the bottom right is particularly important. It's from a Circle Line tour, which is a boat that goes around Manhattan. About 500 students, much like yourselves, are on that boat right now as part of the Sustainable Systems class, and it's a really great way to see the city. By the same token, the top is from the United Nations, another trip that class takes.
We are the most diverse international population of any undergraduate art and design program, in fact, of any undergraduate program, period, in the United States. And that means that not only are you working with people across the United States, but across the world. And the truth is, if you're looking for an innovative solution to a complex problem and you're asking all the same people who've had all the same experiences to help you figure that out, you're not going to find that innovative solution. You need diversity. You need the kinds of creative, out-of-the-box thinking that comes from cross-cultural experiences, and that's what happens here. And so the students are extraordinary, and they are joined by, as I mentioned to you, this amazing faculty. And so it's really that combination. It's that combination of people like John in the faculty who care so deeply. We're kind of curricular nerds around this stuff, and we've been working on it for a long time. It's the combination of the people sitting in this room with you and the facilities and the city that make possible this kind of creativity, because there's no other place like New York to do this work. I would give you all a round of applause and congratulate you for getting in, and I hope to see you all here in September. So congratulations, everybody.